feel like we need to shore up and explain some things. So, Thomas, you game for that today?
Yes, Betsy, because sometimes I'm just not clear and I don't finish my thoughts. And people say, what did you started on that and you didn't finish, and things like that. So we just need to clear up some things. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone sends in.
Well, you don't know the questions I'm going to ask, but generally, so that people will know what they're going to listen to in this audio, so they don't have to wait till the very end, I'm going to ask you about Jeff Sessions up front. Then I'm going to ask you about NASA and the planets and the solar system. Then I'm going to give you a couple of names that we know in the media right now that I don't think are getting full coverage. And we're going to wrap it up with a very important issue. I'm going to ask you about the Syrian conflict. So let's get started. I would like you to respond to this Trump quote that was taken on the White House lawn on the 19th of September. Quote, "I don't have an attorney general. It's very sad. I'm not happy at the border. I'm not happy with numerous things. Not just this. I'm very disappointed in Jeff. Very disappointed." Close quote.
He is correct. He does not have an attorney general. And now that we go back and he has reflected in that very conversation, he said, Jeff came to me and he kept, first supporter out the gates, and he kept begging to be the attorney general. And I kept thinking, no. And then finally he just kept begging, so I let him be the attorney general. It was a setup from the beginning. He's a Bushite. We already know how he makes his money. We know that he was part of Uranium One, Jeff Sessions, and the nonsense of people. And I'm sorry to have to say it. There have even been some people who I have great respect for and who have been good reporters on a lot of this, but they missed the Jeff Sessions thing. They missed the Michael Horowitz thing. They thought both of them were working for the good side.
Well,
no, they're not.
Before you go on, what do you mean? How does Jeff make his money?
Jeff makes his money through prisons because of his investments. He also makes his money off the military-industrial complex. He undoubtedly has offshore accounts, and that's why he was able to be bullied into doing what he did by the Bushes. Remember, he is a Bushite. He's always been a Bushite. He might as well have been another son of Prescott Bush, for God's sake. And he, of course, is corrupt as can be. And as we now know, Hillary and Bill have the ability to spy on anybody, and we don't want to go into what we assume are the blackmail points for Jeff Sessions because we don't have evidence for it, but it's pretty obvious just by knowing him and looking at his history that he's being blackmailed. So he recused himself on the Russian issue. The Russian issue is a coup d'etat against the president he's supposed to be working for, and he won't defend that president. Since he will not step down, and he has been disgracefully referred to again and again as being a do-nothing by President Trump, since he won't step down, that proves that he is a deep stater, globalist, shadow government, member of the resistance, who is part of the treason.
He's a senior executive service operative.
Yes, he is.
And I say that because you've got this guy, James O'Keefe, running around doing all these undercover reports on the deep state shadow government. I've listened to 3 of them so far, and he points the problem at the Democrat Socialist Party or organization, association, whatever, and now the latest is a communist. He's like doing everything but naming senior executive service, which makes me think that James has become controlled opposition.
Well, James doesn't go far enough. Look what he did with Planned Parenthood. Did he really get anywhere with it? As a matter of fact, he got sued instead of them being sued. Instead of them being closed down, he was closed down for that operation. They almost closed him down permanently. So you have to be careful when someone doesn't go far enough and they're just basically being the caricature, being a cartoon version, because that's spin. That's getting out in front of the narrative. That's what the entire Democratic Party does. Everything they're guilty for, the first thing they do is get out in front of the narrative and accuse the other party of it and accuse them of doing the opposite of what they are doing themselves. So they exonerate themselves and put the blame on others. Hello, that's Hillary. That's the Russian collusion. That's Robert Mueller. That's James Comey. That's Andrew McCabe. That's all of the group of conspirators, 36 of them, we've named them, who all need to go to Guantanamo Bay. But that is not going to happen by executive action. It can only happen with congressional investigations that lead to the point where then the Department of Justice picks up investigations. Now, the Congress has demanded that Christopher Steele be investigated. They haven't. They demanded that Imran Awan be investigated. He was exonerated. They've demanded that there be a special counsel to look into the special counsel of Mueller. Nothing has happened. They've demanded all kinds of things, but what Trump is doing now with the declassification documents is he made them beg him so that he cannot have this put on him. People need to understand, if Trump fires Jeff Sessions, there will be impeachment proceedings. Okay? That's why Kavanaugh is so important. The Supreme Court will decide because there will be no charges with the impeachment. It will be bogus. And that's only going to happen if they win the House, and they're not going to win the House. And so there will be no impeachment. And so Trump doesn't care about Kavanaugh. He literally doesn't. That's a play on his part. Kavanaugh was to bring out the evil of both sides who aren't MAGA towards the midterm. And what's happening? They're all showing exactly who they are. They're all like Cory Booker, going too far, trying to defend their Socialist Democrat Party. And what are they doing? They're showing their evil, just like Robert Mueller. So now what happens? Trump says, and this is the big one, yeah, go ahead, declassify, as we've said from the beginning, please, the text messages of James Comey, Andrew McCabe, and the people at the top of this investigation, which was never an investigation. It was a CIA counterintelligence operation. And that will reveal so many new things. If you thought the page-struck texts were something juicy, wait until you hear the Comey, Andrew McCabe texts. Oh, yes, and the other people that he is revealing, which is a whole slew of people. Now, those texts are going to show that it was an institutionalized weaponization of these federal agencies by Obama and by Hillary. They intended to keep the White House and keep the bombing going and keep the refugees coming in and make sure there's no borders and make sure George Soros is never charged for tax evasion and make sure that George Soros gives billions to the Democrats.
It would have been a total annihilation of the United States.
Oh, it would be the end. We would no longer have a republic by now.
So this is war, and we need to treat these people as war actors.
Yes, but first they need to reveal themselves as the war actors that they are. Now, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to what I was saying before. Those who believed there was a plan with Jeff Sessions, you are not listening to President Trump. Why are you calling him a liar? He is not trying to make Jeff Sessions step down on his own for nothing. There's no plan behind the scenes. That's just silliness. That is somebody who wants to obscure things in mystifying puzzles that can't be solved and make innuendos and accusations and confabulated associations. And those people, and it's all over the internet, I don't even like to say the word because it upsets people too much, but notice there are article after article saying, there's no plan with Jeff Sessions and Trump. You'd have to be crazy to believe that. Michael Horowitz isn't a good guy. He's not a white hat. You have to be kidding. If you trusted Michael Horowitz, well, remember the politicalization between the FBI and DOJ investigation? No indictments. None. It was worse than politicalization. It was weaponization, and it involved all of the agencies, and Michael Horowitz never indicted anyone. He never suggested for Hoover to indict anyone. And Andrew McCabe's lack of candor, grand jury going on right now that supposedly James Baker is turning state's evidence for, I'll have to wait and see the evidence because we work on evidence here. We don't work on sheer imagination of what we hope is going to happen. Sometimes we speculate, and as has been pointed out repeatedly to us in the conclave, we have been right in every single case that we've speculated. But we tell you it's speculation. But we do gloat later when we say that we did speculate and try to tap ourselves on the back.
Let's go back here because that people make convincing arguments that Sessions and Trump are playing some kind of 64D chess where they try to keep the enemy from knowing what's really going on. And if you're an average person and you read these comments, you go, wow, that sounds right. But it's not.
There is a plan, folks. I'm going to tell you again the plan. All you have to do is read the news, and you will know there is no plan with Jeff Sessions, and you should believe Donald J. Trump's words.
What news? The news that doesn't know how to report anything accurately, that uses anonymous sources, fake news. What is a person supposed to listen to find truth?
If you read Truth News headlines every day, you will get all of the information that you need. Anything we're saying, we've backed up with documentation. So read Truth News headlines. The Office of Inspector General under the direction of the United States Treasury, Mr. Mnuchin, has been attacking the federal agencies with audits and restructuring them because of those audits, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. Hundreds and thousands of people have been indicted. Hundreds and hundreds have been convicted and put in jail. $2.8 billion has been recovered. 2 federal agencies have been audited, and they have found so many violations and have arrested so many people. And you're not hearing a single word about that because why? It was all secret, as it should be. You don't tell the criminals you're coming after them. Trump tells you all the time, I'm not going to tell you my strategy. That's why we decode his tweets. That's why we decode his executive orders. That's why we decode and translate what it is that he cannot say, because he is fighting a political battle for all of our lives for this country. And those people who want to criticize him because he hasn't stopped all the chemtrails, I'm sorry, 90% of the chemtrails in our area have been stopped. And do I think that he's been addressed about this issue? No. Do I think he's been addressed about the black ops issues that are going on? No. The black ops issue of a FBI, CIA illegal weaponization of the federal agencies, all 17 intelligence communities, against candidate Trump, President-elect Trump, and President Trump has not been stopped. He was never told about those operations. We're getting to the bottom of them, and the sources and methods that they're trying to protect, they are the sources. They're the enemies they're protecting, and the methods are they're covering their own trail. That's the only sources and methods. And you know that Trump has hit it really on the head with the declassification because 4 of the 8 members of the Gang of 8, in other words, that would be Schumer, Pelosi, Schiff, and Mark Warner, who are on the 2 intelligence committees, Senate and Congress, and then, of course, the leaders of the Senate and Congress. There's 8 of them, Republicans, Democrats. All 4 Democrats came and wrote a letter, which was such a huge lie that, you know, really these people, these politicians should be prosecuted for their lies. And if they were, they'd stop lying because they'd all go to jail. There'd be no more. Most of them, they'd all be in jail because they lie. In this letter, it demands that Trump not declassify these because he is being considered in this investigation. No, Rod Rosenstein has said Trump is not being considered in Mueller's investigation. That's why he's never been questioned. He says Rod Rosenstein has made this announcement 3 times. No collusion has been found with Trump or his team with Russia.
He just wants, they all want to say, hey, you people just go away. We just want to get rid of President Trump so we can go back to our evil machinations of ruling the world. That's what's really going on.
And because they're caught with their pants down, because of all that they did thinking that Hillary was going to win. And so they just were having a riotously good time attacking Trump illegally, weaponizing federal agencies against him. It's all coming out now, and they're fighting for their lives. And yes, they do want to go back to their senior executive service bureaucratic status quo, where they feed the same rat lines which go out of this country, not to this country. These are globalists who are attacking us from the inside. We call them the shadow government. Now, Trump is hitting them on the head because these are their names. This is going to reveal their crimes, declassifying these texts, declassifying the things that Nunes and Trey Gowdy and Grassley and Matt Gaetz also, they're all calling for these documents. And when they come out, there is going to be no hiding. The Democrats, the Socialist Democrats, the Democratic Socialists, that's better. The Democratic Socialists have bet everything on this. And because they continue with the special counsel October surprises that never stop trying to affect the midterm election, which is illegal, with their illegal investigation for conspiracy to collude, which there is no crime, they're showing who they are, and they're going to lose these midterm elections in a massive way. There's going to be no impeachment. And even if Kavanaugh doesn't get in, it doesn't matter. Trump is going to put in the person he wants next, because he'll get to appoint another one after his second.
Well, of course, I always
after his reelection.
Brett Kavanaugh always bothered me because he's a Bushite too, and he was sitting right there in the thick of things in the White House at that time. We've seen him in the Plum Book, him and his wife. So, fine, whatever, move on. We win the midterms and we get a solid candidate. But what I do have a phrase here, and since you're on the subject, I wanted to capture that. I want to talk about Comey text messages. What do you have to tell us about that we might not be reading in the news?
Well, first off, Comey, Obama, Loretta Lynch, and all of them use private phones and private text messages to communicate with, that's right, the Hildebeest, Hillary. Every text message they sent was a national security crime. It's worse than a felony. And they're all guilty of that. And Comey was part of that.
Basically, they used open lines
Yes,
to communicate top secret or classified information. You cannot text this kind of information off your phone. Just doing that is a crime. Do it 2 times, you're 2 crimes. They were doing it for years.
Now, what you're going to find out is the following. Just like the struck page text messages end when it was getting juicy and it turned into a coup d'etat after he became president-elect, it got kind of dicey. And then, oh, that's right, that phone doesn't keep messages, as they tell us. Oh, those messages were all lost. Of the 55,000, we've seen probably just a few hundred. And of those, they're all damnable. So what are the rest going to tell us? Well, remember, it was Peter Strzok himself who chose those messages to be released. Michael Horowitz said that during the testimony before Congress. He clearly said that he was allowed by Michael Horowitz to choose which of the text messages could be released. Well, that was the first set of them, and it showed the politicalization, and nothing was done. It showed literally a plan to assassinate a sitting president, and nothing was done. Andrew McCabe is being questioned for not having candor. That's it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, or the other day, the news says about Comey and his associates, oh, they could get 10 years in prison, No, people, we're talking about treason. You can be executed for these crimes.
Comey's text messages, if you don't think they've already been cleaned up, you are mistaken. He knew those were the most vulnerable things that he had. What is going to be on them will show his association and knowledge of the entire Crossfire Hurricane investigation, and that Obama will be connected to it. You can bet that when they did this, exactly as we see in the Strzok and Page text messages, and we see the messages between Agent 1 and Agent 5, when we see these messages, we see that they clearly showed who was guilty. They named their bosses. So as they were being freewheelers, thinking that they had absolute impunity to do whatever they want, that they were immune from all laws, they always made sure, just like Susan Rice did, that they named their bosses as the person who told them to do it, so they're not guilty. That's in all the messages. Now, Bruce Orr, he's already squealed like a little pig when he was behind closed doors, and when that comes out, you're going to get to see the amazing collusion with Christopher Steele and the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner, Richard Burr, Dianne Feinstein, Marco Rubio, and of course their institutionalized leakers, James Wolfe, Ali Watkins, Henry Kerner, Daniel Jones, and the rest of the crowd are all going to come out in just a couple of those messages. And when they reveal the missing pages that they want revealed and declassified of the FISA warrant, it's going to show all the parties guilty, including Dana Boente, Sally Yates, Comey, Andrew McCabe. They're all as guilty as sin, and they thought they got out of it by never really having a hearing on those FISA warrants. They just put in the application and then overrode them with national security letters signed by Comey. But it doesn't matter. Comey signed both of them, swearing that Carter Page was a Russian spy with absolute 100% proof. And since he also used the dossier for the FISA warrant, and he told the entire world, including President Trump, that it was salacious and unverified, the massive perjury, the massive treason, sedition, there's really no names for this. This has never happened in U.S. history before.
Okay, so you mentioned one of the names I was going to throw at you, so let me throw you this name. Dana Boente.
He signed, he was in the... he's in the Department of Justice. He was working with the National Security Division. He signed one of the FISA warrants. He was a head counsel there. He resigned when he got caught. When it was said that his name was on them, he immediately resigned in 2017. He was asked back by the crooked Christopher Wray, who's just as crooked as Comey and Andrew McCabe, to be the chief counsel, to take the place of James Baker, really, the chief counsel for the FBI. Why? Because he's in on all the crime and he has to cover up the crime. And now they think that by moving him from the DOJ to the FBI, that's going to help. No, he is going down too because his name is on the FISA warrants. Why these criminals are still in office is only because Donald Trump is fighting for the life of America in a war with China, in a war with North Korea, which is the same thing, in a war with Iran, which is a war with John Kerry, which is a war with Obama, which is a war with Hillary Clinton, because Iran is their proxy. You got to remember that. They brought in 2,500 Iranian spies as part of the payoff to John Kerry, to Obama, and to Hillary. They were paid under the table. That's the reason they gave them $1.7 billion in the cash currency denomination they asked for. They never stopped their nuclear program in Iran. That's complete nonsense. And they have just provided all the missiles to Syria and to Hezbollah to attack Israel. So it's getting ready that Israel is probably going to just blow the holy snot out of Syria. That is the reason a new offensive was created in Syria as a cover for what is going on with the Revolutionary Guard of Iran bringing over missiles to Syria. So Trump is fighting for the life of the world. He's fighting for the life of America so that we can go on as a constitutional republic. And people are giving him a hard time because he's not stopping all of the evils in D.C. Do you understand that there is no such thing as any line of money in D.C. coming out of D.C., that there are not criminals putting toll booths, taxing it, and getting their share? These are mob-like characters. Hillary Clinton puts a tax on every single message on the internet, we just discovered. They got their piece to the pie when these things are created because it's the same cabal of people. And they're all revealing themselves, being pulled into the light. But there is no plan with Sessions. The only plan with Sessions, and there is no goal with Sessions. Sessions' only goal is to do what his handlers tell him to do. And that is all he's doing. He's not even reading Trump tweets. I think there are earplugs in his ear when he goes to cabinet meetings because he is doing nothing for Trump. He is Trump's enemy. He is an enemy of the state. He is a foreign actor. He was part of the Russian-Ukrainian Uranium One ripoff of our entire nuclear industry in America. He is complicit with all of these things. He knew that Jeff Sessions knew the uranium was being shipped out through Windsor. He is complicit with those crimes.
Okay, before we move into these foreign affairs, what about the redactions and releases? What's going to be up with those?
It's going to show all the people involved and everything that Nunes said with his first Nunes memo and everything he said with the redacting when he discovered that is all going to be verified. Are they going to defy Trump? Because there's already talk that these are coming, but they're still going to have redactions in them. Oh, well, they will try. But it will be pretty easy to see through those redactions. And it's not the end of it, you see. That what they don't get is that their words and their text messages do not coincide with what they said publicly, what they leaked in their institutionalized leaking, and what they filed with the FISA court or what they filed anywhere. There was no intelligence that started the Crossfire Hurricane intelligence, which is an active coup against our president. John Brennan started it, and he says there was no intelligence.
Well, he's no intelligence, and he's the one that started it. So
Aldrich Ames, who is still in prison for being a Russian spy, is the one who radicalized John Brennan and brought him into the CIA. Let me repeat that. Aldrich Ames, Aldrichames, still in jail. The worst Russian spy we've ever had was his mentor, and it's the person who trained John Brennan and brought him into the CIA, got him posted at Riyadh, where the bombing happened, and then later where he signed off on 12 of the 19 perpetrators that are accused, allegedly, of attacking 911. He is a conspirator of 911.
Having said that, folks, we know that 9/11 is much more than that.
That's right.
We've written extensive reports on it, so before you get on the thing and go, well, it was this and this and that, we didn't fall off the turnip truck yesterday. Okay, we're ready to move into the solar system?
Anything you'd like.
Okay. Now, this comes from Ron. He wrote an extensive email to us, and Ron has watched your videos on both sides of the bridge. So he's seen your videos on the galaxy, sun, and planets. And the other day, we were talking about the Solar Observatory, and you spoke about satellites and probes. And Ron says he became lost and thinks that others may have too. So he wants to know, can we leave the planet or not? We speak of the Van Allen belt obstacles, and we talk about NASA as smoke and mirrors, and we talk about the temperature on the surface of the sun, no moon landing. It's very conflicting and confusing. So he wants some straight talk from you, Thomas. What's up with the solar system?
Oh, big question. First, let's go to the solar observatory. They now accuse closing every solar observatory in the world to a janitor getting some porno on a computer that is linked into the system. That's impossible.
Well, obviously they're covering up for something.
Yes. And now we want to reiterate what we said before.
Now take it slow so everybody gets the full picture, right?
The Porter solar satellite is fake. Period. Now, why don't they want all the solar observatories looking at the sun? Because they have some other craft out there, and they don't want it to have pictures taken of it. Could the craft could the picture of the mothership, the round dot, and the other stuff that was taken by somebody's cell phone be real? No, but listen, we may get some pictures of this craft as long as the...
Okay, back it up. A craft. How did that craft get through the Van Allen belts to get that far out?
Well, this is where we get really dicey.
Well, let's see if we can clear it up.
First off...
because Betsy says you're not able to get through the Van Allen belts, and there's no way men walked on the moon.
Okay, first off, let's say thank you to the gentleman who wrote in. I read his question. It's a great question. And it's you are pointing out the fact that I will not answer this question. Why will I not answer the question? I work on facts. There are no facts that we went to the moon. Not one. And then I can tell you 100 things that would disturb you greatly because it would demonstrate instantaneously that what I'm saying is true. Why don't they simply turn a telescope towards what was left on the moon and show us the footprints? There are no such things. How come we know that so many of the movies that were taken are all fake? We know who made them, we know where they were made, and we've seen the models that they were made from. So we know that many of the things that were put on television that were sold as being true were simulations. That's a fact. Now, let's just talk about the moon for a second. Please, anyone, show me one speck of evidence. Now, you're going to say, we have the films. No, the films are all gone, folks. They opened up the safe, and they've lost them. They opened up the safes down at old Cape Canaveral.
They lost the instructions for how to get to the moon.
They also lost all of the plans on how they made the capsules that got through, not just the Van Allen belts, but our own atmosphere reaches great temperatures, hot and cold, extreme temperatures that are inexplicable for the shielding that we have. Plus, where are the plasma shields that they would need to keep from microscopic meteorites ripping through every single capsule or everything in space? How come no satellites have ever fallen from being hit by a meteorite? Is any of this sounding funny to you? Why is it that Elon Musk can go to Mars 5 times faster than any other vehicle has ever traveled? How come we just traveled to the sun in 6 weeks?
He's a fake, phony fraud. Him and his company.
So, do we have vehicles that have been identified as unidentified flying objects that can actually go much faster, much further than what we tell the public? Yes, that's well known. I was in the military. I witnessed those things.
But can they get through this atmosphere and the Van Allen belts to go out, like you're saying that these observatories don't want us to see what kind of craft is out there? Well, what kind of craft is it that could get out there?
The ones that we've witnessed so many times flying around here on the Earth. The ones that turn 90-degree angles. The ones that go speeds that have been recorded so many times in UFO observations. But now, some of those are crafts. Some of those are, in fact, natural phenomena. And this is where it gets really dicey. The Graham Observatory, which is the observatory for the Pope.
Mount Graham, and it's called the Lucifer telescope.
Which is a dual lens infrared telescope, the largest one in the world. Its acronym is Lucifer, and they think that's a joke. But the Pope and his astronomers have come out and said repeatedly that we're going to be visited. We've been visited before by aliens, and we will be again soon. Not only that, they show pictures, and these pictures were on the internet. Now, I didn't grab them, but I don't find them easily now. But they showed many, many, many little creatures flying around and sometimes literally dividing into two.
But these are more like plasma light
They're like
creatures.
They're heat signatures, and they look like germs. They look like single cell microbes that are proliferating, and they proliferate around either radiomagnetic energy, light, heat. They can be filmed out on the high plateaus of the desert in America. They've been filmed extensively.
You can see them dancing around.
You can see them dancing around.
We've even seen them. We've even looked out our windows at night and seen the little dancing lights in the sky.
When I was in the military, I was also a photographer. And that was one of the things that was my specialty. And we took a lot of pictures of these UFOs when we were on certain top secret bases because they were flying around all the time. And when I showed them to the commander, he confiscated all of our cameras and closed down my photography club.
And remember, UFOs don't mean that they're manned spaceships with aliens in them. These are just simply objects in the sky that we're not able to identify.
With normal film, the emulsion is overexposed on the bottom side of a UFO picture. So when you take a picture of a UFO, if you got a real UFO, you will notice that there's a black, unexplainably black part down at the bottom of that UFO, if it's the long cylinder type. And what is that? That's because its engine is a type of engine that causes a radiation that overexposes the emulsion on film. Now, I have taken many of these, and they were confiscated, as I've said. And unfortunately, I've had many experiences with these type of things, and because we would, of course, seek them out. Most of the time, well, not most of the time. Some of the time, they're just natural phenomena that is inexplicable. But if you go with somebody who's a clairvoyant and very spiritual, they might be able to tell you what is causing the phenomena. And usually the phenomena has to do with springs, earthquakes, volcanoes, fractures in the earth, fissures in the earth, and movement of water in the earth, like underground geysers and stuff. You'll see all these things appear. But are there literally manned U.S. crafts? Yes, there are. And that I say with absolute assurance. Now, do I have proof of that? Only the circumstantial evidence I have, and then what I have witnessed. So I don't base I'm not going to tell you 100% that I have proof of that, because I'm still waiting. I've seen lots and lots of circumstantial evidence concerning many of these things, but I do not believe that they have an underground chamber where they zap people to Mars and back.
Okay, well, I think we're getting off here, and I don't think we're getting pointed into the answer, because you said that they shut down these observatories so that we could not see this spacecraft. Well, let's talk about that spacecraft. What's it doing? And once again, how did it get out of our atmosphere to the place it is right now? And could you stay focused on that one to answer that?
Okay, first off, I didn't say that. I'm not saying yes or no to anything except that I believe from my direct experience that I have seen natural phenomena and man-made phenomena that are called UFOs. Now, that's my experience. What do we have as evidence? Those people who say they have the evidence, listen long enough, and pretty soon they're going to be talking about the 7 types of aliens and the bliss and the that and the this and the that. Yeah, there's 7 planets, and each of those planets have beings who are spiritual, and they literally interpenetrate us. So to say that beings from other planets come here, yes, they do. Do they use physical vehicles? Those are incidental to them.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why we offer a bridge over to where we look at these things from a spiritual point of view.
In the early 60s, the SR-71, the black, they have many names for it, but it's a spy plane, can fly into outer space without any type of booster engines. Complete nonsense. It can fly. It's never flown as fast as it can fly. It extends its length because it's made of titanium, because it can go 4,000 miles an hour. It can fly into outer space, and it could in the early 60s. Okay? We've been lied to with our space program. So what do we have at this point? If in the 60s we could fly into space and we lied about it, And we had the technology which were, if you look at the SR-71, it basically is a plasma engine. At a certain point and a certain speed, it becomes a plasma engine, which can explain getting to Mars quickly or to the sun quickly.
But if they tell us about this technology, then they have to release us from this whole petrochemical energy forms, because then there's other forms of energy that could free humanity, but they don't want to free humanity because Hillary and her gangsters want to keep us all locked in the prison planet.
Now, there are people's hopes based upon these UFO dreams that the aliens have brought us the technology, which has brought us into our modern age, which means they're evil. They're evil, okay? If those aliens brought us the technology that is eating our children alive and driving them to depression and suicide because of their cell phones and their computers and because of 5G, then those are evil aliens, aren't they? So don't have hope in aliens. If the aliens are coming, they might be coming to eat us. You don't know. So I haven't seen any good aliens. And if there were aliens, they would be good and they'd help us stop war now, wouldn't they? Have you seen any of those lately? Right. But let me go on. I'm not done with this topic. Do we have ships that can fly outside of our atmosphere? I would speculate, of course we do. Do we lie about our satellites in space? I would speculate, yes we do. Do the Chinese have 200 cube robot attack satellites in space right now, and one of them just attacked the space lab? Yes. And what do? They magnetically seek a certain part of a satellite, they drill a hole in it, and then they release, and that hole brings down the satellite. Remember, this just happened with the space lab, okay, with the docking station. And they even show the drill went in and it left the drill threads on the edge of it. We are being attacked in space. The Space Force that is being created by America is because we are at war right now in space with China. But who is leading that war? Eric Schmidt. Eric Schmidt is in China, and he's giving him all the technology that he gleaned from Boston Dynamics and from Google and Alphabet and all of that. He sold out America. He thought that China was going to be the new leader. He went over there, and he's putting his satellites into space. Remember, he has a contract to put thousands of satellites in space to create 5G. Same thing with Elon Musk and 3 other companies. So right now, the United States government has said anybody can fly into space and poke a hole in our atmosphere, which causes irreparable damage to our atmosphere, as long as they got the money to do so. Matter of fact, we'll give you our launch pads, and we will give you subsidies, Elon Musk. So the entire space thing that you are hearing is a complete lie. What is the truth? We don't know, because we don't have the evidence. But look at the Chinese satellites and the other satellites that have fallen recently for no explanation.
Syria
right now is how they're trying to draw Trump back in with the Brits and the French, as they did before, creating a fake gas attack. The fake gas attack is anybody but Bashar al-Assad. That is just sheer stupidity. Think it through for a moment, folks. He gets a year ago $11.5 billion to continue that war. Why would he want to escalate it with gas attacks that could end the war and he could lose his power? Right now, he's making almost 3 times as much money as his country made when there was no war, and he was making a fortune running all of Al-Qaeda through Syria into Iraq, which then turned around and came back into his country as ISIS and ISIL, which is Barack Obama's army. Remember, ISIS was being given over $1 billion a year openly to war against Syria. This is illegal, of course. The UN certainly didn't put any sanctions on America for doing so. We were supporting 5 different rebel groups there. At one point, we had 3 of our own groups fighting against each other. So what's happening in Idlib right now is not even what the war is about. It is about the fact that Turkey is crashing because Trump decided to go to war with the person we asked him to go to war with, and that would be the guy who runs the hazmat schools, the charter schools. He is, in fact, a terrorist from Turkey. I'm referring to Gulen Fethullah.
Yeah.
And what is going on here is Trump is trying to stop his association with charter schools simply because he stole billions of dollars from charter schools. And we brought that to the attention that the FBI has done nothing about it except multiple investigations and never did anything about it. So why is that happening? Because that is the invitation for a very radical form of Islamic terrorism to come into America, and it's being protected by the FBI because Gulen Fethullah is a CIA operative, and everybody knows that, don't they? That's the reason he gets away with everything, and he isn't being extradited, though he is a criminal. So when Trump went after the two ministers and put sanctions on them, why did that crash the Turkish economy? Does anybody ask any questions about this? Because the ministers are the direct funders of Gulen Fethullah. Billions of dollars were being funneled into these schools, and as much as 65% of the money was being channeled into this terrorist organization, and it was being given back to Turkey to fight against Erdogan, the president of Turkey. So Erdogan is correct. Gulen Fethullah is, in fact, his enemy, and we need to give him up. But because we attacked and put sanctions on the people who fund him, it stopped the whole international terrorist network. Behind the scenes, the U.S. Treasury is doing a workaround the Department of Justice and the FBI. So the people who don't have faith in trust in Trump, you just need to back off for a minute. Some of you are acting like you're members of Congress getting upset about Chinese tariffs. He cannot lose with China. How many times does this have to be said? Why would anybody even care? He cannot lose with China. We were being ripped off so bad. What's he going to do? Allow them to rip us off more? So, China, don't get me started on the war with China, but that's what's going on. China wants to get into the war in Syria. Remember, they sent their largest troop carrier to Syria twice, empty. Why? Because they took back 1.4 million refugees from Turkey that they turned into slave trade. We have pictures of the fact that the boat left full and it arrived empty by just looking at the waterline on the boat. And why did they come anyway? Russia didn't ask China to come participate in Syria. So what is really going on? Turkey's going down, and so they're escalating the war. Because when war happens, Turkey makes money. More refugees means more money from the UN to Turkey. The Pope makes more money. But now Trump has destroyed that. He's destroyed the UN refugee program in America and called it out for what it is, and it's collapsing around the world, which means Turkey collapses, which means the Pope collapses, which means our program in America collapses. And it did. It has. And it is dead. It's not being reopened because you can't find anyone from the 8 countries that Obama bombed that is a refugee who likes America. You can't vet any of them. They come over believing in Sharia law. In other words, they come over as someone who is sworn not to follow the law, U.S. law. We can't vet any of them. And we certainly can't vet any of them that are fighting age young men who are lying about the women and children that they're with and using the same name on all their passports, which got through the UN Refugee Council, got through the Pope, got into America, and now we can't find those refugees. Go back and look for the 100,000 refugees that came in 2016, as people have done, and you can't find them, folks, because they're being human trafficked. And I'm not making this up. We've already proven it. We've already shown Obama was caught human trafficking. Obama invited, remember, Obama invited children without parents to come to our border and he would take care of them. He actually put them on planes and flew them all throughout the country and put them in work camps. And now they aren't even there. So go to look for Obama's children that he saved at the border. See if you can find them. You won't even find the majority of them. That's what was really going on. Syria is nothing more than a chance for Trump to show that he is not going to stand for Islamic fascists doing what they're doing, either against Israel or against anybody in America, anywhere. He stands up against that. What did he say? No more business with America if you economically support radical Islamic terrorists. And what happened? Qatar stopped. so many Arab countries stopped, Saudi Arabia stopped donating money, and it restructured, and Saudi Arabia created an alliance with Israel. Hello? And now Israeli planes are bombing Yemen, and Saudi planes are helping the Israelis, and they're using all their rat lines through Hezbollah and all these other rat lines to help Israel. So what's happening in Syria is that's where Armageddon was supposed to happen, according to Hillary. She was going to drop the bomb on Damascus, and it was supposed to create such chaos. What really is happening? Trump says to OPEC, lower your prices or else. Twice he's done this, twice they lowered. He's done it again recently. We'll see what happens. But if those sanctions on Iran are not violated by Britain and France, which are again getting ready to stage a gas attack in Syria, will Trump attack? Yes, if Britain and France attack with equal amount of bombs upon their own intelligence, will he join in with them? Yes, he will. Why? Because he has to play the political game. He cannot go against the whole world. He has to play the political game.